Listen, I'll introduce Eric real quick, and then we're gonna get talking. Listen, I think about this moment as a great time for leaders and new leaders to emerge. And when I had breakfast with Eric, probably 2 years ago now, in New York, I thought, okay, this guy is going to be an AI leader. He was at the time doing leadership. He was being a leader and not necessarily with the title or the recognition. And he'll talk about his journey, but he was doing it. He was sort of in the trenches at Logitech with his hands on AI and helping others. He had sold his business. He's a startup guy, a tech guy. He sold his business to Logitech. He's an innovator. He's a product oriented thinker. So when AI came along, he jumped on it, I think, kind of as early as I did. He's younger, better looking than I am, but we are similar in this respect in that we're intensely curious, um, and like things that I think sort of drive change, and which is what AI does, obviously. So, Eric, welcome. Great to see you again.
Greg, thanks for having me. And maybe I'm going to throw a question at you, so to change things up, which is, your mission, which is, want a million people in the class by the end of 2026. Where are you on that journey?
Oh, wait. Okay. This is not a board meeting. Okay. Just for the record. I so just to be clear, what we said at section is that we want to get 1 million people into the AI class by the end of 26. Yeah, it's a great question. We're probably at 100,000, something like that, I'd say, so far. So we got a way to go, but Prof AI is only a couple months old. Well, maybe more than that, but Prof AI is really pretty new, and that only going to get to 1 million through Prof AI. I mean, a software platform that anyone can use. And by the way, Prof AI is free for consumers. So we'll bear the cost of the AI. We'll bear the inference cost for anyone who can learn how to be proficient using Prof AI. We don't want that cost to get in the way, so to speak. Companies have to pay for it. But good question. We got a way to go, Eric. And yeah, not surprising. You turned the tables before we even started. All right. You are at least maybe halfway through your journey as head of AI at Logitech. How I'd like to structure the conversation, Eric, is past, present, future. Let's go back a couple years when we first met and you started yourself tinkering with AI. And then I think you really took it upon yourself to become an AI coach internally at Logitech. So okay, let's go back in time for a few minutes and talk to us about that moment and what you were learning by coaching people and what their reactions were. And why did you think that was the best way to kickstart AI at the time?
Yeah, Greg. No, so thank you. Great question. And what I'll say is that, AI as a concept is something that's been intensely fascinating to me for a really long time, more than a decade. In 2012, I joined an early ad tech martech company called Rocket Fuel at the time, which was started by an AI PhD out of Stanford. And he was a classmate of Sergey and Larry. And at the time, he had written the most. His name is George John. If you're out there, George, hello. At the time, he had written the most highly cited AI research paper in history. And so the promise of the potential of AI was emerging. Right, this was before the seminal 2000 paper, the 2017 paper by Hinton and the likes in terms of attention is all you need, and transformers and understanding really neural networks and how that can work. But the potential was there. Back then, of course, we called it, big data, right? There was this whole notion of, or machine learning, big data. What would that portend? So, took a career path in a few different directions. When I came to Logitech through a company that I had started called Meeting Science to make meetings suck less, uh, we have AI, right? Logitech is not new to AI in terms of the hardware we provide and some of the software services, but on a 6,000 plus person organization on an individual basis, still new to a lot of people when we think about enterprise AI and the ability to provide workflows and use cases for individuals. So what did I do? I wanted to get as educated as I possibly could on what's happening in terms of AI knowledge and education. And so I went to Section and I took Section's mini AI MBA course. This is not like I'm not a paid sponsor from of Section, but I did take the Section AI mini MBA course. And at the capstone of that course, the capstone question was, and I think you had to review it, Greg. It's like, okay, this is a project. If you want to get certified, if you want to get your AI mini MBA certification, what are you going to do? So at first, I'm like, oh, well, I can use generative AI to improve my product plans for the software thing that I'm leading. And then overnight, I said to myself, wait a second, I believe what Greg believes, that we all owe it to ourselves to become parts of the AI class. So what if I could take this roughly 800 slides worth of material presented over a 6-week period, condense it down into about 60 slides based on what I know about the enterprise, about Logitech, and I am just going to go and start training people on my own. I am going to go hand to hand combat. And I did it for over the course of 6 months in 2024, 824 people went through my training in terms of top 10 tips, like having this post-it note on my computer, which I still have, which is Ask AI, like Greg's tip that he gave last summer, which was having a second screen, which is entirely dedicated to AI. And on and on. I could talk
So
about those tips at
basically,
a later
so
point.
basically you ripped off our IP, put your name on it, and use it internally in Logitech. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
And then, and was this one-on-one or in small group or both? Like, how did you actually
Yeah,
do?
no, good question. So it was shared IP and acknowledged as coming from Section, in addition to making it more bespoke to Logitech use cases. And so it in some instances it was one on me with another leadership team member one for an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours. In some cases it was me with 5 people, 15 people, by department, by region, by site, by location. So there were many different ways in which I could walk in there with some bit of credibility from my CMO AI ship history,
Yep.
and then with some credibility in terms of having the AI mini MBA stamp of approval from Section,
And
and then
mostly virtual, mostly on Zoom, presumably.
almost all of it on Zoom. I've
And
worked
then,
from home since 2019.
right. And did you prioritize it all in any way, or was it more like who was willing, or was more who had interest, or did you, or do like executives first and then say, like, how did you think about
So
who to train
macro and
first?
micro, macro and micro. So a combination of top down and bottoms up, because I think any change management transformation effort you can't have one without the other. And so it
Yeah.
was, hey, can I grab an hour of your time? Hey, your team, I've heard from your team about, hey, they've had some questions about this. Why don't we assemble a group of them, a group of potential AI champions or AI champions in training, to talk about what are ways in which we can make generative AI work for you.
So let's get a little more specific, even into these sessions, Eric. I'm really curious. Sort of, what were their reactions? What were the concerns? Hesitations. Like, what did you hear when you were doing these very, small group, intimate type
Mhm.
things? Like, what's going on?
So the small group. So interestingly, I would say, and this came up because then I looked. I have it on my screen here. In January of this year, I did a state of AI survey across the company. 900 participants came in, and they said, to continue learning how to engage with Gen AI, what types of training content would interest you? And the top three were basic prompting tips and tricks, advanced prompting skills for role specific use cases, and advanced prompting skills for general productivity. So I think it's one of those questions where, look, for 30 years, we as human beings have been trained by Google, and before Google, there was Lycos, AltaVista, others, Yahoo, even, to look at a search box and ask a question, get an answer, and move on with your day. Gen AI is not like that. It's not an answering machine. It is, thank goodness OpenAI said chat GPT, not answer GPT, because it is an iterative conversation like you would with a human being, like you would with a thinking partner. If I went on a first date with you, Greg, and I said hi, and you said hi, and that was it. Like, well, what did I learn about that person? Is that person going to give me more information, or can I build a relationship with that individual? So you need to build a relationship with generative AI, and I think that was probably the one thing that was missing. If I had to look across everyone to say that was the missing moment, where it's like, oh, it's more than just search. It goes beyond search, and yes, it does go beyond search. Oh, you don't like the first answer? Guess what? Go back and ask it again. And so that then I would say became the big unlock in
Mhm.
terms of looking at AI as more than a search tool, but actually an experiential thought partner.
And you think you had to kind of show people, I mean, or the benefit of showing them was they could see it live, right? Like, when you
Oh,
were doing these training sessions, you were doing demos basically, right? You were showing people how to use.
absolutely, yeah. Demos in real time, and look, I can recite the Prof AI or the Section School mantra: role, context, task, output, boundaries, and reasoning. I talk about those all the time. I talk about those with my kids. I
Right.
talk about those with my family. I talk about those with anyone I possibly can, right? Because look, Ethan Malik, God bless him, Wharton professor who doesn't sleep, who wrote Co-Intelligence, he just published a piece called Mass Intelligence in the last week about like how we're giving mass intelligence as this grand experiment, and we'll see how it works out. But one of the comments he made was that, look, AI has gotten pretty good at understanding your intent. I think that's true on a mass consumer perspective. It is not true necessarily from an enterprise knowledge management, like how you work specifically in your role perspective, which is why understanding how to prompt effectively and thinking about role, context, task, output, in particular boundaries. Make sure you understand if I'm doing some sort of supply chain or forecast analysis, I want this, I don't want that. Reasoning, thinking through it step by step. These are all like when we think about our knowledge work as these codified tomes of things in which we've always done in the past, or maybe we've done in the past and need to do in the future, we need to transfer that into language. And we need to transfer that language into effective context, as it's been called in the last 6 months, context engineering, not just prompt engineer. And so the more you can get educated in that way, and the more you can actually practice that every day, the better you'll be.
Actually, let's just stop there for a moment because I had no idea what context engineering is, or what. I mean, I get it, but like, explain it to all of us. Like, why have we moved on from prompt engineering to context engineering?
Well, look, so I think prompt engineering was a convenient trope that we used for a period of time in which we said, oh, you need to hire prompt engineers to be able to think through these sophisticated chain of thoughts and reasoning and put this into system prompts that are not available to you. And now you're like, actually, no. What matters the most is the context. It's not actually the prompt; it's the context. It's what you were trying to achieve. I liken it to it's a recipe, right? What is a recipe, or what is an algorithm? It's a set of instructions designed to achieve a specific outcome, or maybe it's a set of instructions designed to achieve an unspecific outcome, but you want to have more questions at the end of it instead of answers. And so that is the context. Your knowledge work, the work that you do as an individual every day in your organization is your context. And so the more you can bring that context into Gen AI, the more effective you will be with using Gen AI as a thought partner on its output. Did that answer the question, Greg? I hope.
No, it's great. No, I get it. So basically get very good at having smart conversations with context, with data, with AI. So that was sort of phase one for you at Logitech was over 800 people. You personally, in some way, small group individually trained, got them comfortable, presumably heard their questions, their concerns, whatever. Like, how did that inform what you did next? And what did you do next at Logitech?
Right. So what I did next at Logitech, so that was in 2020, that was 2024. And then 2024 became that transition moment of saying, and this was a conversation I had with Hanukkah, our CTO, our CEO, as well as Jay Wilder, who's head of software, de facto CTO. And I said, look, guys and girl, right now, I believe, or my observation is that we have 100 people doing 1% of the AI job. There's a little bit, legal is part of it. There's privacy, there's governance, there's product security, there's X, there's Y, there's Z. If you really want acceleration to happen, you need to have at least one person doing this 100% of their time. That's all they need to be. All they do is think about AI and all of its manifestations. So whether that be for enterprise knowledge management, whether that be for ways in which, now look, I'm not going to pretend to be a hardware engineer, but I need to understand what's coming from the hardware roadmap to be able to say, like, look, when we have Sight as part of our Logitech for Business offering, Sight does automatic context switching and be able to show you so that you have great meeting equity. That is agentic AI in practice. That is a manifestation of agentic AI from a hardware perspective. So I need to be able, so somebody needs to be have that corpus of knowledge. And then within that corpus of knowledge, be able to then federate it outward so that there are other people connecting the dots between different organizations. Because look, we have a gaming part of our business. We have a business part of our business. We have a personal workspace part of our business. For as much as I would say organizationally or globally, we would like to think that every organization works, completely as in a very functional matrix. Oh, there are certainly, like, within certain divisions, there are silos. And there are good reasons to have silos, but there are also silos. So how do I connect the dots between these two?
So you pitched that you would be the head of AI.
So I pitched it.
And it worked. Honest. And you got the job.
And I got the job. Yeah.
And so the CEO, sounds like CEO fully bought into the potential. I'm curious, maybe the answer is both. Bought into the potential of AI internally in terms of making the workforce, smarter, more efficient, more productive, whatever,
Mhm.
or both AI into the products, like meaning, building AI into the actual product roadmap. How did they think about it, or was it both?
Yeah, so I would say it's certainly, I don't want to speak for Hanukkah, but I would say it's certainly, I think she certainly thinks of it in both contexts. My role specifically, or over the last year, has been about thinking about really focusing on enterprise AI and what that means in terms of how you or I or teams might interact, and whether that be through Gemini, so we're a Google Workspace shop, or through LogiQ, which is our instance. Like many who are on this call have probably heard of, like there's either, Moderna had MChat,
Yeah.
Nestle has Nest GPT. We have our own private instance to be able to do that for people to explore as well.
Yeah.
So I've been focused on that, and then also extending those capabilities into building an agentic infrastructure so that we can have hundreds, if not thousands, of agents working alongside us on our behalf. So, like my
Okay,
my
we're
first,
gonna get we're gonna
we're
get
gonna
to
get.
agents. We're gonna get to agents soon if we have time. I want to stop though, Eric, on the
Mhm.
LLM kind of decisions first, just for a moment. So, what what does the typical employee get access to in terms of sort of LLMs that they get?
Sure.
Yeah.
So
What's the toolkit? What's the tool set?
not just typical employee. Every employee has access to, through Gemini, through Google Workspace. They
Yeah.
have access to as many OpenAI models as we turn on, as we source them from Microsoft AI Foundry, as well as we also source all of the Claude models from
Yeah.
Amazon,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so employees have the ability to work with these models themselves. So through a UI, they also
Yeah.
have the ability to work with these models. A smaller percentage of employees, by necessity, or not even necessarily by necessity, just by training, can work with them from an API. So we both support the API layer as well as the front end interface layer to be
Yeah.
able to get shit done, and get shit done
And
at
so they
scale.
know when if they're in that UI, like their space, they can use that.
Well, yeah, super important, right? So, absolutely, yes. It took a long time for us. And one of the first things I did in this role was I said, like, look, we need to find a better way. In fact, the reason why adoption had stalled to a certain degree was that it took 11 clicks to get to what is now known as LogiQ, which was then known as Logi AI, because it required VPN. It required just too many steps. There were too many points of friction, these tiny frictions that make a huge difference in terms of scaled adoption. So that was the job number one between January and March, was re-architecting LogiQ for us to be able to have one-click interface, single sign-on access to this model garden, combined with an interface to be able to do that.
Okay,
And plus, Greg,
hold sec. I just want
one,
to highlight
yep,
that for the
go ahead.
audience. I
Yep.
want to highlight this for the audience. There's a little nugget of gold there for all of us. For scaled adoption, Eric said specifically scaled adoption, not for early adopters, right? Not for those, because the early adopters will put up with the friction. But for scaled adoption, you've got to remove friction to the AI, right? That every little point of friction is going to reduce adoption.
Well, it's either going to reduce adoption and or it's going to create shadow adoption.
Right.
Right? Because the consumer applications, as you've talked about many times, right? Like, they want to get you on the hook.
Yeah.
So, and so they build hooks, and so they make it one click simple to be able to do that. If we can't be one click simple, then people are going to go out and do their own thing. Again, not necessarily in like, oh my God, I'm so frustrated. It's just like, yeah, they have this tiny friction that bounces them off of what is enterprise safe and go into enterprise unsafe.
So you did have to do the kind of hard labor of getting compliance and data and security and IT on board. Presumably, in parallel, you were doing that. You had the CEO air cover though, right? Like your CEO
Mhm.
was bought in.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. She was bought in, and it could not have been successful without her buy-in for sure.
And what about the rest of the exec team? Did they come along quickly, or was it like any typical team? Some bought fast, and some were more reluctant. Like how do you think about?
Well, look, I would say I don't know if reluctance is the right word so much as, look, my favorite quote, I think you'll find this on my LinkedIn profile, is from Aristotle. And it came from a 10th grade history assignment I had to write ahead of a history class, which was, Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And so when we think about habit formation or habit creation or breaking habits and then building new habits, change is hard, right? Especially if change is hard. If you've been doing something and you've had a pretty good successful run at X or Y for N number of times, and now Eric shows up and be like, "Hey, yeah, now I need you to change your entire. I need to and you need to be transformed with AI." Like, piss off, buddy. I've got other things to do. So, but in the end, when we're able to federate the knowledge of AI adoption on a leadership team level, so how am I doing relative to my peers? And then we're able to look from the top down as well as the bottom up, then truly all boats, all boats rise. And everyone then becomes successful because it's FOMO. You wind up saying, well, look, if Hanukkah completes her Prof AI certification in the first 30 days of us launching, and I haven't, is that like, oh shit, I need to actually maybe I need to get on board with this too.
I love it. This guy is using the Stoics, and then he's using data to make his case about change. I love it. So you actually report on currently. You report on at the team level or the exec level. You report on sort of successful adoption.
Yeah. So if we talk, Greg, about adoption, so there's Prof AI certification and there's general AI adoption. And so for AI adoption, I look at across the company, I look at consistency. So how many times do people like, what is the average daily use? I look at intensity. So when I know when I look at it, intensity, I look at probably, okay, another fun fact for Maxwell and others, like bellwether metric is messages per conversation. And the reason that's important, going back to the Google example I described before, was like, look, if you're having very shallow interaction with AI, you're treating it like search. You're not going beyond AI. You're still treating it like search. And so when looking at that, I was able to say, okay, in January, on average, there were 2.87 messages per conversation. Now there are 8.17 messages per conversation. And what that says to me is that yes, people are turning the tide between going from curious to competency. So then I look at, so that's consistency and intensity. Then there's creation. So we have the ability, so everyone within the company has the ability to create custom GPTs effectively to either do work for themselves, but also not just do work for themselves, but do work for others. And so we mentioned this in our last, I think it was our last earnings call or the one previous, right? There were at the time nearly 1,000 custom GPTs that were created across the organization. That number has since grown. I won't say exactly what the number is, but it's ballooned since then. And then so I look at that, Greg, from an impact basis. Say, hey, did I create a custom GPT that was just good for my use case or others? And then I look at breadth. So am I, Eric, am I using LogiQ? Am I using Gemini? Am I using Gemini within the different applications? And then finally, there's also Prof AI. So Prof AI as a skills floor, which is like you're either in or you're not. And so this one then, Greg, also brings me to my other great Greek philosopher, Greek poet, Archilochus. So this is another good, and this is important one, right? Like, so what he said, and this is a lot of time spent in the military talks about this. We do not, I wrote it down. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. So from that sense, I would, if we do nothing more than have Prof AI as the training baseline, then that's a great place to fall to. It's a great place to fall to because role, context, task, outcome, boundaries, reasoning, that applies not just to your daily use, but when you're talking to third parties, when you're talking about ways in which you can build an agentic future, an AI future, all of those skills, all of those concepts are related or directly related to the inputs and outputs you want to get from any AI system.
Okay, we got a lot to unpack here. So, so you're pulling all this data from these different platforms, right? I would assume. So that you're having to do some heavy lifting around, getting Gemini data and or ChatGPT data, or has someone built a dashboard for you, or like how do you?
So I built it myself and vibe coded it, and so I pull information from section twice a week, from Prof AI twice a week to look at certification stats. I pull that information then into an export I get from ServiceNow and Workday, which gives me that global view of our employee base. And then that gives me the ability to create a Google App Script application that any individual has the ability. I would even show it if I had time to show it. Anyone right now in the company, here we go. We'll just show this.
Do it.
Here's the app. So you can put in your email address, and then anyone who you manage, anyone who rolls up to you, you will find out what their Prof AI certification looks like. And the only way you can do that is if you
So hold
have,
on, slow down. So that's not Prop AI. That's a thing you built on top of Prop
that's the
AI.
thing I built on top of Prof
That
AI
an
data.
employer can go in and get a report basically on the AI proficiency, essentially, or Prop AI.
Prof AI proficiency
Uh,
within their
and how many
team,
employees?
individual,
Right.
organization.
How many employees have gone through Prop AI?
4,375 as of this morning have completed Prof AI certification. So, if the headline was 50% in 80 days, we're now at 78% in 110 days. So 78% of the organization across 43 countries, 143 cities, have been
And you're not
Prof AI
mandating.
certified.
You're not sort of necessarily. It's not like compliance training.
No, it's absolutely not.
You're encouraging people to do it.
Oh, great. That's a really great point. So there are certain companies or certain other heads of AI or other heads of whatever that I've talked to that have said, hey, yeah, it's more carrot or more stick than carrot. If you
Right.
don't complete this training, you will not be eligible for X. We've taken a slightly different approach, which is like, I would highly encourage you to take this training because it unlocks more value for you. And then it also unlocks value for you when working with me. So I will do bespoke training sessions like how to use Google Deep Research when it comes to doing ops variance reports for a finance team. But like there was a pocket of, as an example, there was a pocket of folks in our finance team who weren't Prof AI certified. They're like, hey, we want to do this advanced training with you. I'm like, that's really interesting. But until you are at a minimum, until this team is at 80% certification, I just don't have the time to be able to invest that with you. So that's a quid pro quo of
That's fine.
getting more, get
Yeah.
more out of more instead of getting less if you don't do X or Y.
I love that. So I want to move on to other AI tools, Eric. How much do you try to control, other AI tools being bought by teams? The marketers want to buy AI for marketing or, finance, HR, whatever. Just curious, are you trying to centralize that in terms of tool selection, or do functional and team leaders have their own ability to sort of go and, test and trial and buy other AI?
Well, look, I say, so the general approach is you can try everything. We will support a certain set of things. And when it comes to on an approval basis for something that is, I'll call it enterprise-wide deployment that requires privacy, security, procurement, good business justification. There may be some element of digital office, IT management, et cetera, that are part of that. So going back to what I said before, Greg, though, which is super important, which is this notion of connecting the dots. Because now have this ability to connect the dots horizontally across the organization, I don't have a specific remit into any one group. I can say, oh, hey, you know what? That request sounds an awful lot like this experiment that either was successful or failed within this other organization. Talk to that, connect those dots first before you consider or push this particular initiative. There's certain, and I would say too, Greg, is that there's certain pieces of software that we have not renewed because we've been able to instrument in LogiQ, right, our version. There are certain pieces that we're able to do ourselves now that require us spending less on quote unquote traditional software acquisition.
Yeah. All right, let's move to ROI and the future. So let's do ROI first, ROI to today, and then let's talk about the future. So where you're going with AI, how do you think about it for the next 12, 24 months? So let's talk about ROI. And my first question, Eric, is how do you pitch it? Like when you did all those initial trainings last year, or even still this year, like what are you saying the employee is going to get when you talk to the employee? Are you saying, listen, it's going to make you smarter, it's going to make you more productive? Is it outsource your drudge work? Is it all of the above? Or like, do you have to make the case to them as to why they should do this? And if you do make the case, what's the case you're making?
Sure. No, so it's definitely do more with more. Which is to say, and for those who've either followed or read any of my stuff on LinkedIn, I published something a couple of weeks ago, which was I took my own ChatGPT exploration of looking across my history of GPT and what are the conversations and what did it enable me to do now that I was previously unable to do. So what I would say is that it helps you make decisions smarter and faster because you're no longer waiting for someone to reply. I'm no longer waiting for Greg to get back to me. I can get instantaneous cognitive enhancement directly from a mixture of experts. So that's the other thing too. I think we have an advantage, which is because we have Gemini and we have Claude and we have ChatGPT, I can take the mixture of experts model that Microsoft published this summer, where it was the DXO mixture of experts, and Mustafa Suleiman talked about this a lot, which is, hey, they were able to show that this mixture of experts model that took all of these different versions of frontier models were able to outthink a doctor's group in
Mhm.
terms of diagnosing these really interesting or these really specialized cases from, I think it was Johns Hopkins, that there were 400 or so, 421 patients that were that had these different disease states and whatnot. And
Mhm.
so the AI, again, through mixture of experts, was able to outthink the doctors on their own. Great. Now, is that saying that they're going to replace doctors? No. But what it is saying is that they were able to come to conclusions faster at scale, and be able to do it in a federated manner than they were able to before. So it's like, why would you not want to take advantage of that? Why would you not want to have that as an option when the cost of it is tokens? The cost of it is it's a rounding error on a balance sheet.
Well, okay. Oh, yeah. But I'm not sure every CFO thinks that way. So, I mean, because when you add it up, it is probably a rounding error on the balance sheet. I don't disagree. I mean, we know if you negotiate with OpenAI, you'll get, you'll probably spend $25 a month for GPT for enterprise, something like that, right? If you're buying in large volume. So it adds up across thousands of employees. And are you getting two questions? Are employees confirming that they're getting that advantage now that we're, a year and a half into this journey at Logitech? Is that what you're hearing back from employees? Like,
Well,
is the
you know what?
is the juice worth the squeeze?
8,000%, because we now have 50, 60, 70 different use cases of before AI, this was happening. With AI, the following is happening. And oh, by the way, now I've been able to cancel a $200,000 contract, or I've been able to do the following. So yeah, so when any AI initiative that we have, so there's an intake form. Hey, I'm interested in doing the following. Okay, great. If you're interested in doing the following that doesn't exist now, then I also want you to look at it and ladder up your request relative to the what are the overall corporate objectives. So overall corporate objectives are 2031 strategy. Please tie it to that. When you've completed an AI project, I now want you to look at, okay, on the outro basis, make sure that you're saying, okay, I want to tie that back to some variance of ROI, time saved, value earned, dollars created, dollars saved, what have you. And so now I literally have dozens of those examples. So yes, so I can more than offset the cost of the token cost, or even on a subscription basis. So right now, because we have our own LogiQ, we pay for tokens, we don't pay for seats. So it makes it so that there's also an economics of scale there. Absolutely, absolutely worth it. And so again, everybody is now motivated to think, okay, what can I do before that I wasn't able to do before? And how do I tie this back either to one of our principal company corporate objectives? And so corporate, team, personal.
Yeah. You and I both know Bryce Chalamal over at Moderna, head of AI on Moderna. He's obviously had a lot of success in terms of driving adoption and of AI internally there. 4,000, approximately 4,000 workers at Moderna. But Bryce has this point of view that, we shouldn't be asking about the ROI of AI, that, no one asks, the CFO doesn't ask about that, the ROI of, a laptop or the internet or whatever. But I don't think most CFOs buy that. Like I think most CFOs are like, where's this turn up? Not on the balance sheet, but on the income statement, right? And in terms of some real gain. What do you think the answer there is going to be? Maybe not today, but in a year or two, and not necessarily at Logitech, but sort of more broadly, when you think about this, this is going to have to pay for itself, right?
Sure.
Obviously, and more than that, it's going to have a 5-10x ROI, I think, to really justify the effort. Is that coming from productivity and efficiency, or is it coming from building new products, or a mix? Like, what's your prediction?
Yeah. So my prediction, and it's not my prediction. It's not just mine. It's yours. It's others. Traditional software is in big trouble, because traditional software sold on a seat license basis is definitely getting squeezed, because why pay for dashboard software when you can create dashboards on your own, when you can create agents, when I can create a visualization agent that's connected via MCP to a D3 library that I'm able to invoke at will and run on an AWS run on an AWS instance for pennies. And then, oh, by the way, now I can also create an MCP to my data lake and do it with OAuth, and so do it provision that are scoped to me as an individual. So I only see what my data.
A lot of,
Craig
like,
only, Craig
there's a
only
lot
sees
of,
his data.
there's a lot of jargon there. There's a lot of jargon there. Hold a sec.
Model. Yeah, we.
But just to be clear for the
Yep.
audience, what you're saying is one of the ways we'll get ROI is we will cancel other software contracts that cost real money, because we will disperse this ability to use AI to access our data. And so basically that's what you're saying. That's part of the business case, or
Yes, absolutely. Part of the business case is massive disruption
but
of.
again, just to be clear, with that is I'm going to cancel contracts on software and save money there in order to get ROI from AI. That's what you're saying.
Oh, 100%. So that's absolutely part of it.
Yeah, and productivity presumably is part of it. Are we seeing that anywhere yet, either at Logitech or other places? Do you think where we can really say, oh, we need less people because of the AI is doing some of this work, or are we just still hoping this is going to happen? Do you think?
So wouldn't say that we need less people. What I would say, and again, it's not just me saying this, it's Jensen and others who've said this. I want the people I have to be able to soar and do more. Because if you think about if you think about your personal goals right now, who here on this call goes to work at 9 o'clock and goes home at 5? Who here's product plan is your burn down list, your backlog is 0.
Mhm.
Nobody. The answer is nobody. Nobody has that. No, not anybody that I work with, at least, has that in the category of company and business that we're in. So in that case, if you can do more with what you have, or do more incrementally because of AI has helped you, again, achieve Iron Man or woman like potential, then yeah, I want to keep the people I have, and I want to enable them to do more. So that burned out again, because again, our ambition will far exceed our ability, or the roadmap will far exceed our ability to complete it. And so there will always be more to do. So if I can accelerate that, and I'm seeing that, Greg, in terms of when I look at some of those metrics, some of those bellwether metrics, when I look at just as an example, number of GPTs that have been created in the last 6 months to take over some tasks of, like, whether it be IT help desk or travel booking, or take your pick, like, those are real savings, because it creates it removes these tiny frictions from the everyday work that we do as humans.
Hard to measure though, right? That's going to be one of the challenges of AI is going to be removing those frictions. Are just they're hard to measure. They're real. I don't disagree.
No, they're real. They're hard to measure, but guess what? This is why I said before, in terms of like the intake form for creating something new with AI and the outtake form from creating something from AI, both have an ROI value that you are responsible for measuring. You, as the AI owner or the owner of the project, need to come up with a model, a heuristic that makes sense in terms of measuring the input as well as measuring the output. I will not mandate that. And I have certain instrumentation that I'll use as in my role to be able to look Matteo in the face and say, yeah, the juice was worth the squeeze. Look at Annika in the face, or the board in the face, and say, yeah, it was absolutely worth it for us to be able to do what we're doing today.
All right, let's flip the coin. Let's look at the other side. Where is it not working? Where have you been disappointed? What are these AI companies not yet providing that you need to drive higher levels of adoption, productivity? Like share some of the hard stuff, not just the good stuff.
Well, look, productivity should be an outcome, not necessarily an input. In the sense that if the following is true, if you have great skills in terms of your ability to prompt well and communicate well, are you a good communicator? Are you a good manager, or not? So management skills apply to AI skills.
Mhm.
And so where is the friction? Bad managers. If you're not a good manager of human beings, you're not going to be suddenly a good manager of AI. If you're not a good manager of time management, you're not suddenly going to become like, it's not going to create this I know Kung Fu moment in terms of suddenly I have all of these skills that were available to me now that weren't available to me before. So I would say a little bit of it is inertia. A little bit of it is change management in terms of, well, I've always done this. My 88-year-old high school band teacher, God bless him, still alive, Ken Pollitt. I don't know. I don't think he's on the call, but he would say to us, practice makes perfect, but it also makes permanent. And so in some instances, AI unfortunately unlocks the dirty secret of thinking debt and decision debt that each one of us has been responsible for in any organization that we've been in for the last 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It shines a light. You can't hide from AI because AI is, guess what? It's non-deterministic like human beings. We are probabilistic people.
Mhm.
AI is also probabilistic, non-deterministic. We have invented software for the last 30 years that by and large has been based on determinism. And when you
Mhm.
suddenly shine a light on AI across all your business processes, you suddenly realize, whoops, we made mistakes. And so we need to unlearn, undo some of that decision debt, and then rebuild it into this agentic, non-deterministic future. I hope that makes sense.
That makes total sense. I had a guest recently, Eric, suggest to me that everyone should be taught how to do workflow audits or something like a workflow audit for themselves, like personally
Mhm.
and for their team. Because if you can't unpack and understand your workflows, you won't successfully apply AI. Would you agree? And
Oh, well, what a great statement. And again,
are you teaching people that, or do you want to?
are we teaching it? Yes. Do I want to do more of it? More? Yes. Do I think, again, not an overt plug, but an overt plug in the sense that we're having a section conversation. Do I think section has some of the best training and capabilities around workflow audits, workflow management? I think, in fact, last couple of months ago, you created that workflow audit pack that anybody could download. Absolutely. Because that's the thing, like, this is what I described before in terms of codification of, like, enterprise knowledge is codified in human beings. And when you unpack it in workflow, you suddenly realize, oh yeah, practice makes perfect, but it also makes permanent. I've been practicing the same thing and creating permanence in something that I need to now rethink
Yep.
and rebuild for this for the AI future that we're in now.
And Eric, agents, overhyped, underhyped.
Currently overhyped by software companies selling agents, underhyped in terms of what their potential is. Like, where I for anybody on the call that has any kind of technology team, like, build it yourself first. Go through the process of building an agent first before you outsource agentic work to someone else, because there are, what I was describing before, the acronym soup that we had before, A to A, ADK, MCP, OMFG, like, these are things that you need to build yourself, and you can build them yourself for yourself with applications like, there's AI Box, which is from uh, I forget the name of the guy, but it's Connor Grennan's partner in the
Yep.
podcast.
Yep.
There's Sim Theory, which is created by these couple of brothers from Australia.
Yep.
Like, I would recommend,
Yep.
people sign up for the Sim Theories of the world and the AI Boxes of the world, because they include MCPs, and so you can build your own agent. Build your own agent first before you outsource agentic work to others.
All right. Next time we talk, Eric, I want to talk about what's going to happen in a year or two. One of which is things like, if you build an agent, who owns it, the company or you? Right? If you redesign a workflow that's AI enabled, does the company own that, or do you as the employee own it, or should you share in the IP and the royalty? I think we have some really fascinating questions ahead of us as we really think about integrating AI into our workforces.